Yeah, welcome to the Weege Show here in my palatial home office that has a door that can lock so I can keep the kids and wife out of here when I need to watch races on a weekday, which is so weird. And when Monster Energy Supercross embarked on its very ambitious plan to get the 2020 season ramped back up, be it the Glendale plan or the St. Louis plan or as it turned out to be the Salt Lake City plan, we all figured it would be a game of give and take. As a matter of fact, the very first Weege Show that I did when this whole COVID thing started was, we're not going to have it perfect, everybody. We're all going to have to make sacrifices and just hang on. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but any kind of racing is better than not racing at all. So I think everyone was willing to come into this with an open mind, realizing that there'd be strengths, which is getting back to work, and weaknesses, which is weird things. Day races, races without fans, racing twice a week, racing in the same stadium on the same dirt over and over, not being able to go home for weeks. Here's the craziest part about it. I don't think any of those side effects have really become negatives. Adam Cianciarulo got hurt. He was out. That was like a OC. He couldn't make it back in time because the races were too close together. But as it turned out, his injury was bad enough where even if they were racing 7 days apart, he wouldn't have made it back. And everything else, everybody seems happy. There was a press conference a couple of days ago with riders like Benny Bloss and Blake Baggett and Dean Wilson and Aaron Plessinger, Justin Brayton. These guys were happy. They really liked this thing. As a matter of fact, they would like to see some of this trickle into future races. Maybe the weeknight thing, maybe the 2 races within a 3 or 4 day span thing, and then pack some races together and then get a longer time off. Multiple races in the same city so you can stay in the same place, not have to rush to the airport. They like all this stuff. And the one thing I thought for sure would happen, which is as this went on, by the time we got to the 6th race, someone who was struggling with results or with a nagging injury would just be like, get me out of here, I want to get home. But even the riders who haven't had the results they wanted still seemed happy. The 2 guys that come to mind first, the Monster Energy Yamaha team, it has been tough for them, and both Justin Barcia and Aaron Plessinger have admitted that the hard-packed dirt is not really the forte of their motorcycle, and their results have shown Barcia went from 4th in points right behind Cooper Webb to 70-some points behind Webb now in these 6 races. But Plessinger, you know him, I don't think he was super bummed. He's still happy about everything. I think Barcia is bummed the way it turned out, but I thought you'd see a handful of riders happy and a whole bunch of riders saying, yeah, this started out cool, but I am over it. But no, kudos to the folks at Feld for putting this together, and it was a grand experiment, and I have to say it's been pretty good. And as always, if you want the ultimate proof, it's not just the attitude of the riders. It's not just that they would like to see some of this maybe trickle into the series in the future. It's the on-the-track stuff. Because we're all racing fans, and I've said a million times, good racing solves everything. And the racing, for the most part here, outside of that first race, has been very good. So let's cover the next to last round of Supercross for 2020 in this edition of the Weege Show, brought to you by Racetech and their gold valves. You know them. Plusher, better bottoming resistance, more traction, made and engineered in the USA. Go to racetech.com to get a set of gold valves of your own. Or go to racetech.com/Weege Show. Send them an email. Maybe they're still sending some out. I don't know. The COVID thing changed a lot. But the racing has not changed. The track barely even changed, by the way, for this one compared to the last race. And we saw a pretty good battle there with Ken Roczen and Cooper Webb there on Sunday. And here we are. This was a true barn burner. You had yet another atrocious, hellacious start. Eli Tomac said in the post-race press conference the start was basically a joke. That's how bad it was. He was 19th as he rounded the first turn. And up front, all the guys who have become the heavy hitters during this stretch. Zach Osborne, Webb, Roczen, Jason Anderson, who has been very good for the most part on this stretch and did win a heat race at this event. So Tomac had his work cut out for him. Well, he cut the deficit down, and he got right to those guys pretty early. And then we had a really tense situation. A, who was going to win the race? B, if Tomac won it, would he wrap up the title? Could he get that done? It was actually in play for a while. But as he caught those top guys, it did start to get a little harder. Anderson put up a little resistance. He was able to get around him eventually. He was able to get around Roczen. Roczen tried to get him back. But it was the last 2 that really made it hard. Zach Osborne has been riding very well. And got a text thread going with Zacho and a couple of my other media buddies. And he's saying 2 things at once. Yes, he has to learn to, I guess what would they say? He's already learned to crawl. Now he's learned to walk, and he's trying to learn to run and win these races. But at the same time, he's not going to continue to be satisfied with seconds and thirds. He really wants to win one of these. So he admitted mentally it got to him. He led even longer here than he did at the one a couple of races ago, and that eventually got to him. It is still a work in progress to win a 450 Supercross. Part of that's on him. Part of it's just on the fact that we know Tomac's gnarly late in races just because of his fitness alone. He's just beast mode there. And we know Cooper Webb just has a way of putting in his best stuff late. And this isn't just my opinion. These are facts. Webb said in the post-race press conference, the best lap he turned in on this track at any point on this day was lap 25 of the main event. And you could literally see the whoops, the jump after the whoops, and the left-hander after it. He was terrible there at the first half of the race. And by the way, you can go back to the previous race. That's where he got past Roczen. That part of the track was almost the same. The corner was changed a little bit. The jumps were changed a little bit, but it was virtually the same section where he got passed by Roczen for the lead on Sunday, and he was losing time there again. And then all of a sudden, he got the whoops down better in the second half of the race. And that corner, he was so slow on the entry to the corner, he just started rushing it. And he was able to get to the inside. And he turned the turn that was his liability into an asset. It's just what Cooper Webb does. And it was just what Cooper Webb needed, because the fact that Tomac was able to catch him from so far back, it looked like Tomac might have the magic, might have the mojo, might wrap up the title early. It was a nail-biter. It was close. It was tense. But Cooper marched away just enough at the end that Eli couldn't get him. Now, if you're a Tomac fan, that's okay, because Tomac did admit that he was trying to ride the balance. He got to those guys. He would have loved to have won the race, but he still has to play it a little bit conservative here. And I also wonder, look, Webb's a salty type. I don't think he's going to full-on T-bone Tomac and try to break his leg and win the title that way, but I'd have to wonder if you're Tomac and you're like, man, 2 laps to go. If I try a pass on the outside, is that worth the risk? Apparently it wasn't. I don't think we saw full-on 100% crazy Tomac there late, and we also saw the standard great race strategy of Webb. So Webb holds on. He's the last rider not eliminated from this championship besides Tomac, and it will go down to the finale, and it's obviously likely that Tomac will win the title, but here's what's dangerous about this. If Tomac were to somehow have a problem, say with the motorcycle, if he doesn't finish that main event and Webb wins the championship. And I think if you look at the way things have settled in now, if you had a race without Tomac in it, would you not put the best odds on who would win the race on Webb? So it's a little scary, I'm curious to see how Tomac plays the start. When he said how much of a joke this start was, he actually said, I might as well just let these guys take off and then just roll. And being there in the pack with everybody like that on the first couple of laps, he said that's the scariest part. If he's in that situation again, man, it is going to be cardiac arrest time, because it's just 1 foot peg through the front spokes away from all getting away. That is unlikely. And by the way, we know Webb's clutch down the stretch of these races, but the fact that Tomac, with the championship hanging in the balance tonight, was able to pick his way through all that traffic, come from 19th to 2nd, we really, I think, are going to have to put to rest the Eli doesn't come up big in the pressure races thing, because he's done it right pretty much every single one of these races in Salt Lake City. Even when he hasn't won, he's done the right things each time. He certainly deserves this title. It would be unfortunate if some horrible bad luck takes it away. But that's what makes racing interesting. Webb got it down to the final round, and we'll see what happens. Now, speaking of earning titles, Chase Sexton is not the 250 Supercross East champion for this year yet. He was a champion last year. But I have to imagine he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, because last year we all know Austin Forkner was the fastest guy. He was winning all the races. Then he got hurt. Sexton won the title, winning 1 race. He did come into this season saying, I need to go out and earn it. I need to be the fastest guy, the best guy. That's how I want to win it. And you can't script it any better than this. He was behind Shane McElrath. He caught McElrath. He passed McElrath with authority, and he got away, and he won. That is as straight up gets. He really stamped it this time. Again, anything can happen in a finale, especially since it's an East-West showdown, so that doesn't guarantee that Sexton wins the title, but at least the script that he wanted this year of, I can earn this thing, it's kind of just like Tomac. Not only does he appear to be ready to do it, but he appears to be ready to do it in the exact way he would want to. It was a phenomenal ride for Sexton. And as you often hear people in the industry and other riders say, they really marvel at Sexton's riding style, and it was on full display tonight. He just looked good. He was so smooth and calculated, and it seemed like he put the motorcycle anywhere he wanted. McElrath rode well, but there was nothing he could do with Sexton on this night. And it makes a little more sense now when you see Sexton ride this year, how much hype there has been around him. Remember, Honda signed him to a 450 deal at the end of last year, even with one more 250 season yet to play, and only one career Supercross win to his credit at that time. They're looking a whole lot smarter now because he's riding a whole lot better. But it's not over. The good vibes will end on Sunday because this trip that all the riders seem to like will be over. But perhaps more importantly, we're going to see how it turns out. All three championships still mathematically on the line. You've got Forkner trying to catch Ferrandis in 250 West. We talked about Sexton and Tomac. This should be really fun. It's been great, this whole Salt Lake thing. I applaud the Feld people. I cannot imagine the sleepless nights and sacrifices they had to put in to get this thing together. And I think it's gone better than most people thought. Obviously, we need fans back at the races. That's the only way this sport is really going to work. So it's never going to look quite like this again, but for what it looked like, it ended up looking really good. There's one race left. Let's put some championship flair on it and see how it looks when we pile that on. Thanks for watching the Weege Show, and check out racetech.com for more on gold valves.